Close your eyes. Imagine waking up to a world that looks the same, yet feels completely different. The sun rises as it always does. The birds sing, the coffee brews, and the digital clock on your nightstand ticks on. But something is wrong. You grab your phone to check the news. Only the screen flickers strangely. The GPS app you opened yesterday now spins endlessly. Nothing works. Roads, skies, seas everywhere. Machines that rely on satellites falter, and you don't know why. In the summer of 2012, the Earth narrowly avoided a catastrophe that could have brought modern life to its knees. Hidden in the depths of the sun, a massive solar storm was brewing a coronal mass ejection. Hundreds of millions of tons of charged particles aimed directly at our planet. Scientists had been tracking solar activity, but the storm moved faster than anyone expected, silently hurtling through space at over 1,000,000 miles per hour. Most people didn't notice. Cities continued to hum with electricity. Planes flew their scheduled paths. People went about their daily routines. But behind the scenes, something extraordinary and terrifying was unfolding. Satellites, the invisible backbone of modern life, were bombarded by energy so intense it could fry circuits, scramble GPS signals, and disable communications. For a moment, the world's eyes were blind. The implications were staggering. Imagine pilots in commercial planes suddenly losing navigation, hospitals unable to coordinate emergency care, military systems going dark, banks unable to process transactions. A storm like this didn't just threaten gadgets. It threatened the very infrastructure that keeps society moving. Governments prepared contingency plans in secret, flipping switches and rerouting systems, hoping the damage could be minimized. But the fear, hidden from public eyes, was palpable. On the ground, engineers and scientists raced against invisible waves of energy that no human could see. In control rooms, alarms blared as satellites twitched in their orbits. Solar panels surged, and electronic systems glitched in ways that seemed almost supernatural. Every second counted. A single misstep, a single failure, and modern life could have been thrown into darkness. Yet, to the ordinary citizen, nothing seemed amiss. Cars moved, phones lit up, planes landed safely. And that is the terrifying part. The world almost stopped, and almost no one knew it. Meanwhile, in observatories around the globe, astronomers documented what would later be classified as the closest near-miss in modern history. The storm, though smaller than the infamous 1859 Carrington event, carried enough energy to potentially fry power grids across continents. The U.S. National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, NOAA, and NASA quietly watched the storm veer just enough to avoid direct disaster, holding their collective breath as Earth spun through space, oblivious to the invisible fury above. But the human cost was not zero. Small errors occurred. Satellites temporarily lost orientation, causing data loss. Some communications were scrambled for hours. The event left engineers, scientists, and disaster response teams exhausted and jittery. They understood that the storm was a warning. Technology, for all its power, was fragile. A larger storm, or one coming at the wrong moment, could have shut down life as we know it. And so the story remained mostly erased from public memory. News agencies reported minor satellite glitches, but the near-catastrophe itself was buried under layers of technical jargon, hidden from the eyes of the unprepared. Silence fell over a story that could have been a warning for all of humanity. people continued to live their lives, unaware of how close they had come to waking up in a world without the guidance of satellites. The storm passed. Earth's magnetic field absorbed the worst of it. Systems blinked back to life. Life resumed, almost as if nothing had happened. But for those who watched the invisible sky above, the terror lingered. They knew the delicate threads holding modern civilization together had been shaken, and for a fleeting moment they could have unraveled completely. And yet, there was a haunting thought no one voiced. This was not the end. The sun is unpredictable, its fury a constant threat. And somewhere above, invisible to our eyes, another storm could be building, even now. One day, it might hit with even greater force. When that happens, the world may not be as lucky. Close your eyes again, and imagine it. The phones go dark. Cars stop in the middle of highways. Planes hover uncertainly above. Hospitals scramble in silence. And the digital world, the world you take for granted. And what would humanity look like when the machines we rely on cease to obey? The world never noticed the trembling beneath its digital surface. Most people went about their lives, sipping coffee, checking emails, scrolling social media, completely unaware that the very systems they relied on were teetering on the edge of collapse. But in control rooms, bathed in dim red light, engineers stared at monitors with white-knuckled grips on chairs, watching satellite signals flicker like candles in a storm. Each signal that wavered could mean something catastrophic. Commercial airlines rely on GPS for navigation, guiding planes across continents with pinpoint accuracy. Military forces coordinate entire fleets based on satellite communication. Even basic infrastructure, traffic lights, banking systems, emergency response units depends on the silent signals from above. A misalignment here or a sudden blackout there could cascade into chaos. And for a moment, the edge of disaster was closer than anyone dared to admit. It started slowly, imperceptibly. GPS satellites wobbled in their orbits as charged particles from the sun interacted with Earth's magnetic field. Engineers noticed unexpected anomalies, subtle shifts in satellite orientation that should have been impossible. Commands sent to adjust systems were met with delays and glitches. In some places, automatic flight systems misread positioning by meters, enough to trigger alarms. Every minor warning felt like a siren in the dark, signaling a world that was only seconds away from digital paralysis. And then the human element kicked in. People, already unaware of the storm, began to sense something was off. Commuters noticed traffic lights behaving erratically. Phone users found apps crashing repeatedly. Ships in the ocean reported navigational errors. Hospitals struggled to coordinate surgeries, relying on manual systems that hadn't been used in decades. Panic could have spread like wildfire if the magnitude of the threat had been visible to the masses. Behind the scenes, government agencies scrambled. In secret operations, emergency protocols were activated. Engineers manually rerouted satellite signals, rerouted power grids, and isolated vulnerable systems to minimize damage. Teams worked around the clock, eyes burning from constant screen glare, heartbeats racing with every ping and warning that appeared. For them, the world was on the brink of a digital apocalypse, yet no one outside knew. This was the silence that followed the erase, a catastrophe almost invisible, almost forgotten. Only a handful of people fully understood the scale of what had nearly occurred. And that was the terrifying truth the world can spin along, oblivious. while technology and society hang by threads almost no one sees. Meanwhile, the storm raged above, invisible and indifferent. Solar particles collided with Earth's magnetosphere, causing geomagnetic fluctuations that were measurable but silent. Astronauts aboard the International Space Station noticed their instruments acting strangely. Satellites in higher orbits experienced minor damage. The sun, enormous and eternal, had whispered a warning to the people below, but few would ever hear it. Some systems did fail. Minor blackouts occurred in isolated regions. Communication networks experienced brief outages. The damage was manageable, but it was a wake-up call for those watching carefully. Humanity had brushed up against its own vulnerability, and the near miss remained largely unreported, hidden behind technical bulletins and obscure scientific papers. And yet, there was a human cost, even if subtle. Engineers who worked through the night reported insomnia, anxiety, and a lingering sense of dread. Airlines had to cancel flights as a precaution. Emergency services were put on high alert, leaving communities tense and uncertain. Even though catastrophe had been avoided, the event left invisible scars, reminders of how fragile the systems humans take for granted truly are. As the sun's storm finally began to dissipate and satellites regained stability, life returned to normal on the surface. Phones lit up again, cars obeyed traffic signals, planes resumed their flight paths, and the ordinary world continued without notice. But the shadow of what could have happened lingered in the minds of those who had been awake during those hours. They knew that civilization had been lucky, and luck alone had spared humanity from a disaster that could have changed life as we know it. And now, the question hangs over us all. How long until the next warning comes? The sun is unpredictable, a sleeping giant with the power to shut down the modern world at any moment. Scientists watch and wait, studying patterns, attempting to predict its temper, but certainty is impossible. One day, a storm stronger than the last may arrive, and this time, humanity may not escape so easily. Imagine it again. The hum of electricity dies. The glow of screens fades to black. Cars freeze mid-motion. Planes hang in the sky without guidance. Hospitals scramble in silence. Entire cities sit in darkness, and the people below stare, helpless, as the world we take for granted collapses around them. The storm is coming, and no one can hear its approach. The near-catastrophe serves as both a warning and a ghost story, a glimpse of what could happen if the invisible forces above ever decide to strike with full fury. And that is the human cost, the fragile line between order and chaos, held together by wires, satellites, and the thin veil of luck. The world had breathed a sigh of relief. Satellites stabilized, power grids hummed once more, traffic lights blinked back to life. And yet, beneath the surface of everyday normality, something had shifted in invisible tremor, left in the hearts of those who had witnessed what almost was for most people. The day passed like any other. The digital hum of civilization returned. Phones buzzed, planes landed safely, and banks processed transactions. Nobody spoke of the storm. To the casual observer, the world had not even skipped a beat. But for the engineers, the scientists, and the few government officials who had been awake through the long hours of tension, reality was different. They had stared into the abyss and seen how fragile everything truly was. In the control rooms, exhausted eyes traced the blinking lights of satellites, many of which had been scorched by solar radiation, their circuits temporarily impaired. Engineers quietly repaired systems, recalibrated instruments, and logged anomalies that few outside their circle would ever read. One small miscalculation, a delayed reboot here, a misaligned antenna, there could have sent cascading failures across continents. Entire flight paths, entire cities, even entire economies had rested on seconds of split-second luck. And then came the human element, the subtle, emotional cost. For families relying on digital systems, the near miss was invisible, but no less real. Imagine being stranded mid-air in a plane with navigation flickering, or a hospital suddenly running on manual systems for critical surgeries. For a few short hours, invisible stress gripped the world, even if it went unnoticed by the majority. And those who knew what had almost happened could not easily forget it. Anxiety, dread, and sleepless nights became part of their hidden reality. History rarely remembers events that almost happened. Catastrophes that never fully manifest are often erased from public memory, hidden in technical bulletins and obscure papers. This is the silence that follows the storm. The world went on, but the warning remained, a whisper in the wires, a ghost in the circuits, a caution that civilization is precariously balanced atop forces it barely understands. And yet, the storm's story is not just one of luck. It is a story of fragility, of dependence, and of human vulnerability. Technology is a shield, but a thin one. One stronger storm, one poor alignment of fate, and that shield could shatter. Entire cities could sit in darkness. Entire societies could grind to a halt. Families could be cut off from one another. Doctors left without guidance. Airplanes drifting aimlessly above silent continents. The invisible threads that bind modern life together are delicate, and they have already been tested. This is the human cost, the knowledge that our existence, as structured, as ordered, is not guaranteed. The comfort of electricity, communication, and navigation is an illusion, one that can vanish in moments. The engineers and scientists who saw the near collapse understood it. They would carry this understanding, a quiet dread, for the rest of their lives and the rest of the world, oblivious, blissfully unaware. And still, the storm itself remains, silent above, a patient and indifferent giant. The sun does not care for human schedules, human lives, or human hubris. Its fury waits, sometimes hidden, sometimes apparent, always ready. And history has already shown what is possible when its wrath strikes with precision. Close your eyes once more. Picture the world without guidance, without electricity, without the invisible networks that hum beneath your daily life. Hear the silence where the digital noise should be. Feel the panic that would ripple through every city, every household, every heartbeat. And now imagine it again, not as a story from the past, but as a possibility waiting silently above us in the vast emptiness of space. The near miss of 2012 was a warning the world chose not to remember. But for those who pay attention, for those who imagine, for those willing to see, the lesson is clear. Civilization is fragile. The threads holding it together are invisible, delicate, and easily severed. One day, perhaps sooner than anyone expects, the sun may strike again, and this time humanity may not be as lucky.